a treat for you, I think, for this last live session. I hope you find it a treat. And I hope that it will send you off with a sense of the wholeness of you and a sense of prioritizing self-respect for you as you are, honoring the body that you have, honoring its needs, and recognizing that though these menopausal changes can feel like an end of something, that drawing towards a different phase of our lives has the potential to be a gift for us and indeed for others. So to begin with, I would like you to get comfortable, whether that's in a seated position or lying on the floor. If you are sitting, please do elevate your pelvis so that you don't feel like you're hanging on to your spine. This is going to be a very gentle session. Often is, isn't it? Unless we're really aiming to target bones and muscles. And you're, as I say, are welcome to start on your back or seated. We will be moving, our first movements will be from our back, so that may help you decide, but it will be in 5 minutes time or so. So as you get yourself comfortable, feel free to close or not close your eyes. And take a moment to consider you. To consider your journey. Your journey from babyhood, not just your perimenopausal journey. And how really from babyhood we are creatures who mimic, we copy, we learn, we are social. But we are also unique. We are an amalgamation of all of the things that we have met in our lives, the people, the experiences, the movements, the stresses, the joys, the interactions, the loves. And though we crave and need community, the more we try to submit to being as we are expected to be by the world at large, and mostly those expectations are not so much from our community as they are from marketing, the commercial world. And as we get pulled by that world, we are less able to be our individual selves. And notice what parts of you in your menopause journey, whether in that early perimenopause or late reproductive stage, whether in the thick of perimenopause itself, or whether after menopause, what parts of your experience are made more difficult by your endeavor to tick the boxes to be more like others, rather than a true inhabiting of your closer community, the people you love, the people you spend time with? And which of them is pressured by the same expectations? Which of them may find a huge relief in being allowed to let it go, just as I suspect we all would? And this is central to yoga philosophy, to allow ourselves to be the true expression of ourselves. Our dharma is our essential nature. On the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the texts that the yogis look to, the ancient texts, suggests that it is better to strive in one's own dharma, one's own essential nature, than to succeed in the dharma of another. So better that you are striving in your own nature than succeeding outside your own nature, ignoring your own nature, denying your own nature. It goes on, nothing is ever lost in following one's own dharma, but competition in another's dharma breeds fear and insecurity. So if we strive in another's dharma, whether it is an individual, another individual, or the dharma of this unstoppable force of the commercial world, it breeds fear and insecurity. And neither of those things allows us to be at peace with the unfolding of our lives. I have another quote, and I can't remember where it is from. And I think it is, you could almost translate the word yoga for perimenopause or life. Yoga is about consciousness and presence. To really practice yoga is to be fully accepting of where you are, muscular and skeletal restrictions and all. So be present for the uniqueness of your journey and all it has to teach you. Try to stop looking over your shoulder at your neighbor and start focusing on the only body and life that matters right now, the one you live in. To be ourselves is not just a new feminist philosophy or a radical one. It is an ancient part of the tradition of yoga. Notice if you're physically comfortable. If you are, stay as you are. If you're not, feel free to change your position. Perhaps if you've been sitting, you'd like to lie down already. Just an invitation to consider another of the more esoteric levels of yoga, which is the 5 koshas or layers of being. And sometimes in yoga, we get this impression that we're supposed to leave the muckier layers of us aside, maybe the layers of us that are thinking too much, or the intuitive layers, because we really ought to be doing, practicing a discipline and doing it exactly as expected. But I would suggest to you to bring all of that with you. They all have value. None of you needs to be cast aside to be a better yogi or a better human. So notice the layer known as Annamaya Kosha, the body built of matter. Very important part of you, and fun to inhabit. Alongside the difficulties, there is often fun and delicious sensation inhabiting our Annamaya Kosha. And then noticing Pranamaya Kosha, the breath, but also your energy, your life energy, an energetic field that holds the body together, your biotensegrity, the movement of all the component parts created by energy and breath. And then notice the Manomaya Kosha, the brain, the bit of you that processes and responds, the bit that notices your nose is itchy and scratches it. Sort of instinctual, intuitive part of your brain and nervous system, really, really valuable. And again, with the potential for great pleasure. And then notice the Vijnana Maya Kosha, which is said to be high up inside the skull, the conscious part of you that decided to come to yoga class, the part of you that decides to stay, that recognizes what's of value and makes you do it. And that's why you're here. And that's the wonder of you as a human, the maker of decisions for what serves you well. And then noticing Anandamaya Kosha, the heart, the deeply tranquil bliss layer, wherein resides that seed of joy, contentment, and attunement to the experiences of the emotional life. When Anandamaya Kosha is vibrant, we say that there is no sense of lack, there is no fear, there is no unfulfilled desire, but a stillness and attunement. And I often say that I think that even in our most difficult moments, we feel that. Taking a minute in silence now to connect with all the bits of you that brought you here, that keep you here, and that nourish you in a variety of ways. And if you wanted to be terribly tender with yourself, how would you lie down? What would the journey be like? Not just where would you end up, but what is the quality of your moving to the floor? and notice where you would like to end up. On one of these classes, we did a practice where you spent some time on your back, some time on one of your sides, some time on your belly, to see which position allowed you to feel the most relaxed, the most safe, the most able to yield to rest your weight. So take a little time to figure out, is being on your back right for you? Is being on your side better, or your belly? And whichever position you do choose, what variation of that is best for you today? Your own version of being physically at ease on the floor in such a way that you can begin to connect with your breath. And as you begin to connect with your breath, could you allow it to deepen, to lengthen? So in this year, or this resource over the months that I've been recording them, I've talked often about paced breathing, 6 breaths per minute, and how the research shows that we need to be practicing it maybe 15 or more minutes a day to get the results for sleep, hot flashes, and anxiety. But recently I came across a really interesting little study where they were talking about how the lacrimal gland, the gland that produces tears, activates more readily when we are in the parasympathetic state of our nervous system, the rest and restore. So even something like dry eyes in menopause can be an effect of being too frequently in the stress nervous system, the sympathetic. And what's wonderful is that a particular study discovered that deep breathing for just 3 minutes increased tear production 15 minutes after. So if deep breathing for 3 minutes can induce a parasympathetic state that supports the production of tears, then we have to assume that any amount of deep breathing is going to be helpful. So as much as we are aiming for regular practice, it is worthwhile doing a little bit. So deepening the breath to approximately 6 per minute with movement of the belly, abdominal breathing. And when you're ready, if you're not on your back, could you roll to your back? And if there's anything disturbing the angle of your neck from neutral, i.e., if your head is falling backwards with your chin poking up and your neck feels shortened at the back, then you might want to put a little folded blanket under it to bring the neck to neutral. Or if you are up on something, your head is up on something and it's causing your chin to pull towards your chest and your nose to be pointed down more towards your pelvis, then lower what your head is on, so that hopefully we have the same length in the 2 sides and front and back of the neck, that the nose is, or the chin, well, a good way of thinking it is that under the chin there is parallel to the wall at your feet. So we are neither lifting the chin nor tucking it down. And that's what we want always when we're lying flat, especially in a yoga practice versus in bed. And I would recommend going for low pillows unless there are neck or blood pressure issues that stop you being safe to do so. But the lower the better, so that we're not still in that head forward mode while we're asleep. We're getting relief from that, at least while in bed. And take your attention with your breath down to your pelvis and just begin to wriggle your pelvis about, not taking it off the floor. So very gentle. And for some of you, you might prefer to arch and flatten, or you might prefer to sway side to side, or some of you might like to just improvise between any movements that just arise in your instinctual layer. The bit of your brain, yes, that just notices a sensation and reacts to it. So a bit like if your nose was itchy, you would scratch it. Here, just see if you can think into, or bring your attention into your pelvis, your hips, your lower abdomen, your lower back, and notice the equivalent of itches that need to be scratched. Just have a little squirm about there. And again, if you'd like to arch and flatten so that it's a linear movement of the pelvis tilting towards the feet as you breathe in, tilting towards the face as you breathe out, or you might want to sway the hips side to side as if you're sort of sashaying down a catwalk, or improvise. Deep breaths. And aiming to honor your dharma, your essential nature, and your intuitive layer. What do you want? What brings you and your nervous system pleasure, your body pleasure, or fun? And then if you feel strong enough, let the pelvis come off the floor. And this is immediately going to create muscular demand. And if it's too much for you, bring the pelvis back down. But if you can, keep the pelvis off the floor and draw little infinity symbols with the hips. So an infinity symbol is a sideways 8. And that's going to make quite a lot of requests on the muscles of your lower back, the side of your waist, the pelvic floor, the glutes, the buttocks, the hamstrings, and some muscles around the hips. So don't underestimate the effort even while we're having this easy time. And then reverse the figure of 8 if your brain and body will allow. Sometimes that reverse is a bit awkward for us. We mostly have a habitual way, and that's okay. Give it a go. And if you're getting muscularly too tired, come down. If you're getting a little bit muscularly tired, that's great. Stick with it if you can. It's important too. Just 2 or 3 more figures of 8. Don't forget to breathe. Look for the pleasure. Change it if you want to. And when you're ready, land on the floor, and if possible, drape your legs flat. I find draping my legs flat just lets me relax and feel more. And notice what you feel, probably mostly in the thighs, the hips, the buttocks, the pelvic floor, the genitals, the lower abdomen, the lower back. If your legs are not already out flat, could you bring them out flat? And you might find that some of what's under your legs gets in the way. But if it doesn't, leave all your stuff as it is, your mat or blanket or whatever you're lying on. And we're going to just circle the left foot against the floor. Now you'll notice my mat is getting crumpled, so I'm going to scrunch it up under my thighs so that my leg can be free. And I'm circling with the toes pointing out to the side, the knee draping out to the side. What I'm not doing is coming up and out like this. That's what I'm not doing. I'm staying out to the side and stirring a pot with the side of my foot. We're going to do this for another 10 or so circles. You will get muscularly tired, but really getting a lovely bit of warmth into that hip joint. So all over joint pain can be a thing in the menopause transition, and we don't know exactly why, but certainly working to warm the joints and to keep general systemic inflammation down, which I would have talked about in one of the recordings that you can look at for other ways to bring inflammation down. But when we do anything that relaxes the nervous system, that's going to help inflammation. And when we avoid injury, then we're not going to be adding to it on a physical level. Let that leg go soft, the two legs draping long. And have a yummy time noticing the sensations right and left. Continue breathing deeply. If you've forgotten, just come back to it. Your level of deep breathing, possibly 6 breaths a minute, maybe 4, maybe 7. And then let's go with the right hip. So the right foot is stirring a pot with the outer edge of the right foot, the knee draping out to the side. Relaxing your jaw, which helps the hips relax apparently. And feel the movement in the hip, the thigh, the genitals, the buttocks, the lower abdomen, right down low, and maybe the lower back. And getting those joints and the soft tissues listed, warmed up. Every bit of you loves movement. And most conditions see an improvement with movement. But if you move to a degree that hurts, then you're just going to be inducing more tension or more inflammation. So especially if you've got arthritis or something, you've got to work within a range of motion that doesn't cause pain. Breathing deeply and then letting that leg relax. Go very soft and notice the sensations in the two legs again. And then when you're ready, bend your two knees and take one leg up to the ceiling. And if it's comfortable for you to take both, do. But if only one will happily hang there without you feeling like it's an awful lot of effort in the hamstrings or the core muscles, one leg at a time is fine. And just articulate your ankles. Again, in quite an intuitive way, just feeling into what feels nice. Is it fast or slow? Is it circles, points, or flexes? Is it random stuff? And notice the sensations down the whole length of your legs. And if you find that you can wriggle your toes simultaneously with the ankle movement, do. But if it's just the ankles you can manage, that's cool. As you do this, pour all your attention into the feet, the ankles, and the movement up and down the legs. And for instance, feel if you have socks on, the movement of the fabric of the socks, or feel the temperature of the air on your skin, staying connected to your feet. It's really important as we get older and attentive to any issues that spring up and getting them addressed. And then bring your lovely legs to the floor. And interlace your lovely fingers. Turn your palms towards your knees. Bring your arms up overhead. And have a big yawn if a yawn is there, or maybe even induce a yawn. Often I say to you, this is really nice for the parasympathetic nervous system to yawn. And if you feel like a little sway side to side of the arms, maybe the hips want to sway the opposite way or the same way, just whatever feels nice to add to that arm stretch, shoulder stretch, rib stretch. Where else do you feel it? What are you liking? What itch is being scratched? How might you shift to get more of what you want? And then when you're ready, roll on to your left side, please. If you have, like I do, a big messy mat, you might want to unfurl it. For this lovely practice, please put a block or a cushion under your head, with most of it behind your head, so you're kind of lying at the front edge. It doesn't matter if you've got a little downward trajectory of the head, just not up here. And actually, it's probably better if it's slightly downwards more than neutral, because when we go into the position where the back of the head will be on the cushion, then it'll be too sticky uppy, too much like we're on a big pillow. And take your right hand on top of your left hand. I'll scooch back so you can see that a bit better. And we'll just do a little unsticking of the shoulder blade we already unstuck it a bit when we had our arms overhead, but a slightly different direction. We're going to unstick the shoulder blade of the right side by sliding the right hand longer and sliding the right hand back. Now, what you want to do is avoid what I'm doing, this big rolling of the body back and forth, and instead minimize the roll of the body and reach with the hand as much as you can. Or you could think the shoulder on the reverse and the hand on the forward. And don't forget to breathe. Exhaling forward, perhaps. And inhaling back. Isolating the movement into the shoulder area. And noticing what's ticking your box. What feels nice to you? And if there's any little improv that the body wants to make, that's fine. Just a couple more. Notice the touch of your hands against each other. Good to keep the hands also alert and sensorially active, so the senses don't dull. And then can you take that right arm and just draw a little arc so that it ends up about in a diagonal line with your forehead, reaching up and long. We've done this before, propeller. And take the right leg back, but you may have forgotten it. So my right leg is back about, I don't know, like a 30-degree angle back from neutral, but that will depend person to person. The knee is not bent. The leg is straight, and I don't have to point my toes like a ballerina and get myself cramp. I'm just resting the toes on the floor. And then imagining that you've got I don't know, like a team inside your belly, a team of assistants, and they are going to push your right arm long and push your right leg long. So it's not reaching with the fingers and the toes, it's lengthening from the waist on that lovely diagonal line between the hand and the foot, through the core to the shoulder and hip, along the arm, along the leg. Exhale when you're ready. And as you inhale, draw a circle on the floor, be above your head with your right hand as you draw an arc on the floor with the right leg kicking forwards. And open out into a twist onto the back of your head with your right arm on the floor behind you and your right leg reaching out in front.
Have a look if you're unsure of this finish position. And then as you exhale, reverse the propeller. The leg and the arm are two blades of the propeller and they are working together. They don't change their relationship to one another. As you inhale for the opening position, you can also choose to bend the right knee. It doesn't have to stay straight, which might be easier if you have lower back issues or hamstrings are very strong. And we're trying to straighten that right leg when we can. We can leave the toes and hands always touching the floor, or we can have them hovering an inch or two off the floor. If the shoulder doesn't allow this movement, instead of bringing the arm overhead, slide it across your chest and open out in that direction instead. Keeping the hand on the shoulder is often easier, and then you can still reach it long as you come onto your side again. Do 3 more and imagine or allow this movement to come from your waist and right hip. From that little team inside the body, moving you from the core. 2 more. Arm can go across, knee can bend, hand can stay on the shoulder. Don't allow any pain, please. Subtle strengthening. When you next finish the opening version, roll onto your back. Rest in whatever way makes sense to you. And notice the 2 sides of your body. And as the sensations start to dissipate, you can roll onto your right side and you'll have the block mostly behind your head, your knees bent, and your hands palm to palm to start. Remember, we did the shoulder blade thing first. So we'll slide the hand long and slide it back, and we're not rocking like I'm doing. We're trying to minimize the rock, bringing the hand forward and the shoulder back. Hand and shoulder forward, hand and shoulder back. Take your time. Maybe inhaling back and exhaling forward, also noticing the pleasure of that self-touch. Notice the skin of your hands, temperature, the smoothness, the roughness, the bumps, soft bits, the knobbly bits, and how nice it is to touch and to receive touch. And then take that left arm long and high, so it's approximately in line with your hairline, but on a diagonal in front of it. And then the left leg reaches back and the left leg is straight with the toes in an extension, but not pointing like a ballerina, so no cramp required. And then let that team of movement assistance that's inside your body, aka the fibers of your core muscles, but imagine they're little people if that helps. And imagine they are pushing those 2 limbs long away from each other. You might find that the bottom waist slightly rises off the floor, doesn't touch it quite so fully. And then as you next inhale, the left arm goes overhead, the left leg reaches forwards, and you're opening out into a twist. And if you need to modify this to make it a little easier for hamstrings, then you can bend the knee as it comes forward, but try and straighten it as it comes back. So you can bend it up on the exhale, inhale forward, and As you exhale onto your side again, it straightens as it moves back. And then if there's issues with the left shoulder, instead of the arm overhead, slide it across the floor, across your chest to the left shoulder, and let the elbow come to the floor. You can keep the left fingers on the shoulder so you're not draping the whole weight of your shoulder back behind you, the whole weight of your arm rather back behind you. And you can have the toes and hands on or off the floor. Off the floor will be more muscular, maybe too tiring. On the floor might be a little more soft, but it also might be, I don't know, might hurt your toe if you've got a bare foot, or it might crumple fabric that you're annoyed crumpling, whatever works for you. And see if you can think of moving from the left waist and hip, keeping the relationship with the leg and arm absolute, just like a propeller. 3 more in your own time. When you reach that third, roll onto your back. And again, in stillness, notice what you notice. And then when you're ready, the sensations are likely to have been less intense on that side because of a lack of difference between the two sides. So I'm hoping you're ready to roll onto your belly, but if you need a bit more time, please take a little bit more time on your back. Rolling onto your tummy when you are ready. Resting your head on your hands. Breathing your belly into the floor. So you really feel that lovely swell of the belly, but also the broadening of the back on the inhale. If your head is not already resting forward on hands, please organize it that way so that the neck is neutral, your head is not turned. But you've got your hands there so you're not squashing your nose against the floor, and the back of your neck is long. So please don't end up like this with the chin on the hands and the neck shortened at the back. So forward will usually give you a nice long neck. Inhale here. Exhale, press the front of the pelvis down and elevate your face up off your hands, not looking forward, but just rising up as if on an elevator rather than arching. And you'll feel the muscles of your back doing that work. And inhale slowly down. As you do that 3 more times, try and keep tone in the belly by pressing the pelvis down as you lift up on the exhale, which will also help you keep tone in the pelvic floor and belly. Try not to use your elbows to push you up, so you might find that you go less high than you would like to, because we all think higher is better and more is better. Come up on the exhale, pressing the pelvis down. You might find the glutes engaged a little bit, the buttocks. Try not to push your belly into the floor as you go. And on the last one, as you exhale to lift, can you try and float your hands and elbows? And that will give you an indication of really whether you were using the arms, and most of us probably were. And then come slowly down, head and hands together. We're going to do 3 more, and each time you're going to be lifting the head and the hands and elbows on your exhale
as if your hands are glued to your head. Inhaling down. And exhaling up. Navel to spine as you lift, pressing the pubic bones down. And relax for a moment, let everything melt. Shoulders melt, buttocks melt. The next time we lift up, we're going to lift the right leg, and as we lift, we're going to turn to look to the left shoulder. So inhaling here, exhale, press the pelvis down, elevate the right leg, the face and the hands, but turn to look to the left shoulder. And inhale slowly down. We'll do the same turn the whole time for the next 3. Right leg and turn to the left. Exhale to lift, press the pubic bones down, right leg, hands, elbows, face, and turn to look to the left. And inhale slowly down. 2 more, try and keep your shoulders relaxed. That's a tricky thing to ask. Go as smooth and slow as you can, trying to iron out any jutters and stutters along the way. Last one on this side. And then we're going to swap sides. So you inhale down, exhale, left leg, lift the elbows, hands, and turn the head to the right on the exhale, and inhale slowly down. 3 more in your own time. Smooth and slow, not about how high, but how controlled you can go. And how pain-free. Not pushing yourself to extremity. You probably have 1 or 2 more to do. You don't have to have the eyes open, but you can if you like. And when you land down after your next inhale, relax everything, melt whatever you can melt. If you prefer to rest on one cheek with your arms in a different position, please do. Melt the shoulders. And then come up onto your elbows into a nice low sphinx. And just notice what it's like to linger there, something more simple, I guess. Those movements we've been doing are simple but complex because of the smoothness that we're trying to engender and the attentiveness, the subtlety, making it more complex somehow. We're going to add a movement to this position. So as you next inhale, turn to look to the left shoulder and slide the left knee up. Flex the ankle, and as you exhale, push the left leg back as if you're pushing a brick along the floor. Or you might feel that it's a sense of trying to push yourself forward on your belly like a lizard. And then look over the right shoulder, let the right knee slide up, flex the ankle. And exhaling, push that leg long as if you're trying to clamber forward on your belly like a lizard, or push a big brick back down the floor. Inhale, left knee, look over the left shoulder, flex the ankle, exhale, push, really push, so muscular. And inhale, right knee up, look back. Exhale, flex the ankle, push. You're kind of pulling with the hands as well. And 3 more on each side. Inhale, looking left. Exhale, push. Feel the meatiness of your muscular body. The pelvis, the lower abdomen, the buttocks, the hamstrings, the legs, the arms. Inhale, right. Feel your strength. You can breathe out the mouth. Is a really nice way of getting rid of some possibly anger. Do you need to make a bit of noise? Is there any thoughts coming up that need expression? Maybe your hands turn into claws, or maybe you're feeling sensual and you might be all soft and purry. All right, exhale it back. See if you want to do one more each side or whether you're ready to rest. And when you're ready, rest. And I would suggest that if your neck will allow, that you turn and rest your right cheek on the floor and have your 2 arms back beside your hips, palm facing up. That might be a bit tricky for some necks. And if you have osteoporosis of the spine, you might be better putting a block slightly behind your ear, for example, or at your ear or temple, so that you can lie with the head turned, but with the nose pointing slightly down, so you're not too turned in the neck with the weight falling into the neck because of the arm position. Let the shoulders melt, the back melts, the buttocks melt, the arms melt. Inhale here. As you exhale, press the pubic bones down. Slowly use the muscles of your back to lift your head, turn it to look to the floor. And then when it feels okay, turn it the other way and rest on the other cheek. Again, you can still use a block under your temple to allow, or your cheekbone even, to allow the nose to drop more towards the floor so that the turn of the neck is not too severe, especially if you've osteoporosis of the spine. Or any neck issues, indeed. You might not need a cushion or block. You might be able to put one hand under your side of your head to ease that for yourself. Melting everything you can melt for another few breaths. You probably know by now that I'm a great proponent of doing as little as possible, as much as necessary, but as little as possible. And so in preparation for doing a little easy face down dog, I'm going to take my socks off in the laziest way possible. So if you have socks on, you might just be able to bend your knees and whip them off behind you so that they don't annoy you. When we now inhale, exhale, press the pubic bone down, lift the neck, face rather carefully, turn to face down. Move any supports out from under your head, bring your hands to the floor under your shoulders, push up onto all fours and go back into face down dog in a kind of like visiting an old friend for an easy chat kind of way, rather than trying to perfect anything. and see where the chat takes you. It might be that your chat is very much like it always is, or that it goes off on a tangent or two. There might be a bit of movement. There might be stillness. There might be padding out of the feet. You might be floating a leg into the air. You might be ending up rolling onto 3 limbs and floating a leg, or whatever that thing is, arm to the air, whatever you fancy. Can you tune in with your essential nature and your body's desire and your instinct and your bliss layer, your Anandamaya kosha, and just see if something develops here that takes you into maybe 3 minutes of improvised movement that doesn't have to stay being face down dog. You might do a pigeon pose, a lunge, a triangle pose, anything at all. If you're unsure, but you know you want to move, you can, of course, copy me, but I'm not going to particularly guide stuff, except to move my body, and that might speak to you. And if you are following my Dharma, can you make sure that you make it more yours than mine? So if you follow something I'm doing and your body doesn't like it, then change your mind, or let your body change your mind. More to the point, let your body change your mind. What a great metaphor for how we might allow ourselves to respond to our journey through life's phases. Just another 1.5 minutes or so. You can always rest if you're not having fun moving. You can be still. Some of you might be doing a handstand. Some of you might be squirming around on the floor. Maybe you want to do something a bit strong, like a plank. Or maybe you want to do a warrior one or a child's pose or a camel pose. Just don't go for the ends of things. Go for the journey of things and how it makes you feel to inhabit something even just slightly, rather than going all the way to the end of a pose. There is no end. Beginning to think about winding it down and noticing where you would want to end up. Would you want to end up back in dog, lying on your belly, kneeling, sitting, standing? And when you do eventually come to a stop, just be in stillness for a moment and notice how you feel. And take a moment to consider whether for a restorative pose, which means being at ease in a slightly funny position on a bolster and a few other props, whether for that for about 15 minutes, whether for that you would like to be in a back bendy kind of position where the front body is lengthened, the back body is shortened, maybe the hips are in an externally rotated position, or whether you'd like to be more cocooned into your center. And if you'd like to be cocooned into your center, you could either do child's pose or side-lying Shavasana. Side-lying Shavasana is like this. You would have something under your head that would bring your head up to pretty much neutral neck position. Then you would have maybe cushions or blocks between your feet and between your knees, with your knees bent up at hip height. And then you would have, for side-lying Shavasana, your bolster out in front of you with the bottom arm on the floor and the top arm on the bolster. And then if you're cold, of course, drape a blanket over your back. And in particular for side-lying Shavasana, we encourage you to dampen down your visual sense. So you put also a blanket kind of over your head and tuck it in and around your eyes. You can still use it to cover your body as well. So that's your side-lying Shavasana. You can turn it into something slightly different just by hugging the entire length of the bolster if you like. I really like that because it makes me feel that nice presence at the front body. And that's sort of side-lying Shavasana, or you could say side-lying child's pose. And then for a normal child's pose, if you have knee issues, I recommend the slump rather than child's pose, or ankle issues or hip issues, which is to have the bolster there and to have a cushion at the bottom of the bolster, to get the knees around the cushion, and then to lie out with straight legs out behind you, belly, chest, and cheek on the bolster. But if you're taller than the bolster is long, your head will be falling off, in which case make a little plinth with a couple of blocks at the top of the bolster and rest your forehead. And then you get a nice even line for the whole length of the spine. So that can be nicer than turning the head. Normal restorative child's pose, if you have knees and hips that can tolerate it, which many of us don't, you elevate your bolster. You bring your knees up either side. Some of you may want a cushion under the heels, the cushion under the fronts of the ankles, or a cushion under the bum. And you can still bring yourself into a lovely Heidi cocoon. So those are your foldy innie versions or postures. The other one would be my favorite reclining cobbler, where the bolster is elevated at one end. We sit at the bottom end. We put multiple cushions and blocks on either side of our legs or hips for our thighs and lower legs to rest on, soles of the feet together. We get the blanket, we fold it, and we perhaps put it at the top of the mat and then top of the bolster, and then bring lots of it over the head to squish into the eyes again. Elbows must be on the floor. Don't let your elbows be floating in outer space, or your shoulders will feel stressed. And then some people also like, I'm putting a block in instead of my cushion, to cuddle a cushion if it feels too spooky, and it often can do, to have the arms out here and palms up. So you can have in this posture a bit of both worlds, which is that you have the expansion, but that if you have a bolster or cushion to cuddle, you get that presence in the front body as well that can be so comforting. Entirely up to you. My pillow can work as well. And whenever you're settled, see if you're happy to close your eyes. And at any point over the next little while, you're very welcome to change your position. There is no competition. to tolerate, or to be the same as you've been in the past. If there was any competition, I would ask who's the best at listening to their own needs. I'm just noticing as you lie that sometimes it can create a bubbling up of all sorts of experiences and thoughts and feelings. And these are entirely normal and to be welcomed. And when we push them down, they bubble up with more pressure behind them. And what is it like for you to be able to sit with what bubbles up? I have a lovely, reasonably long reading for you, but I think it's so delightful that it is worth reading. How brave you are for slowing down, for not finishing that to-do list. How courageous you are for not crossing that finish line because your body said enough. How fearless you are for choosing the quiet of your soul over the voices driving you always towards more. How bold, how rebellious, you out there honoring your own natural rhythm, going against the culture's breakneck speed. We tend to make heroes of those hungry with ambition, relentlessly doing, producing always more. We applaud those who refuse to stop or rest, who push themselves so hard in the name of achievement that they sacrifice their body and soul and heart in the process. We celebrate those who are ill or aging but never show it, never slow down, never reveal a moment of vulnerability. The driver can be heroic at times. It can be necessary for our survival or for the greater good. But I want to make heroes of those who slow down. I want to make heroes of those who listen to their bodies, who do not strive for more than what the soul truly needs. I want to make heroes of those who do not force or push, but surrender to each moment as it opens. I want to applaud those who may not be driven towards success as we know it, but instead are nurturing something deep and subtle and needed. I want to celebrate those brave enough to cease all doing, even for a second, and sit with the ache in their hearts a task many find harder than summiting the highest peak. I want to make heroes of those who honor their limitations, who are unable to keep up with the busyness of our times, yet show up to each profound, necessary moment. It is truly an act of courage and rebellion to do any such thing in a world demanding you resist your own self, your own rhythm, your own soul. And the paradox is that often when we cease our incessant doing, even for a minute, and listen to that quiet voice within, we discover what it is we absolutely must do and what instead can fall away. We finally hear the call towards what serves our soul and what then will serve the world. Nothing more, nothing less. A hero is simply someone brave. So come, be softly brave. Be a new, quieter kind of hero. Few may applaud, it's true, but your soul certainly will. That piece is by Layla Aylin. Notice if there's a part of you that is not quite as melted as it might be able to be if you give it permission or attention. Notice your toes, the space between the bones of your feet. The sensations in your feet. Notice your legs all the way up to your hips and buttocks, pelvic floor, genitals, lower abdomen, lower back, thighs. And the sensations in those areas. Notice the belly, the rib cage, front, sides and back, the waist, the back, the shoulder blades, the breastbones, the breasts, the rib cage, the organs, the sensations in your whole trunk. Noticing the shoulder joints, the upper arms, the elbows, lower arms and wrists, and sensations. Notice the hands and fingers and the sensations, all the sensations in your hands. Notice your face, your skull, your eyebrows, your forehead, your cheeks and jaw, the sensations and the bones and the spaces between the bones, spaces at the hinges of the jaw and around the eyes and between the eyebrows, spaces. And the sensations of the whole body, the whole body, the whole body. And then notice if your body would prefer to stay there or whether it's ready to come up to sitting. Or maybe it just wants to come off the bolsters and lie in a different way. Get yourself comfortable, and I'm going to offer you a compassionate challenge. So I'd like you to consider a part of your body that has changed excuse me, visibly over the last 5 years or so. It might be a thinness of the skin on the backs of your hands or a mottling of the skin tone. It might be folds of flesh on the belly. It might be the jowly bits at the bottom of your cheeks, the side of your chin. It could be the soft bit on the back of your arm that wobbles when you wave hello. And whether you can see that bit of you or just touch it, could you bring your attention there? And if at all possible, could you allow it to be skin to skin with your hands touching the bit of you that's changed? And could you try to notice this bit of you entirely objectively, so that it is no longer my old skin, my old belly, my floppy flesh, my bingo wings, my jowls, my wrinkles. But instead, could you imagine you are exploring it like an abstract piece of art? You can use a mirror for this if you like too. Imagine there is some sculpture made of this skin or flesh, and the artist is asking you to discover it with your hands as well as your eyes, and to see it devoid of sense of what social norms demand it to be. And notice, is there anything nice to you about this? Is it soft? Is it pliable? Is it textured and colorful? Stroke or look with curiosity and tenderness. Play with the folds or the wobbles, or investigate the color changes, the texture, the thinness, the wrinkles. And is there something that it reminds you of? Perhaps a landscape or fabric, or even the flesh of a beloved grandparent, or something that you can get behind. And can you see if even for a split second you can witness your changing body without judgment, and just with a sense of it being what it is, even if just yet there isn't quite the availability of looking upon yourself with fascination and tenderness. And if you want to hold your body in stillness now and breathe, you're welcome. In their early years, mermaids spend most of their time fascinated by humans. They try to understand them, mimic their ways, sing their songs, and try to look like them. Over time, they lose interest in their cousins above. They give in, let go of who they think they should become, who they always were. Their appearance slowly changes. The shapes they once tried so hard to maintain grow into something more beautiful, a feeling of self, and finally, belonging. What would it be like to allow yourself to belong to the vast and valuable community that you are becoming a part of? Instead of thinking it as other and to be dreaded. And what would it be like to notice the nourishment that you are, the wisdom that you are, and how those coming up behind are feeding off your wisdom, your nourishment. We are not done. We are different. And we have a new place to inhabit. As Rupi Kaur says, I stand on the sacrifices of 1,000,000 women before me, thinking, what can I do to make this mountain taller so the women after me can see further? Legacy. Many women will be able to see further because of you. If you'd like to hum or sing Om 3 times with me, whichever feels nurturing to you, but sound of some sort. Breathing in together. 2 more, and you can or hum. Om. Mm. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May you be well. May you be free from harm. May you progress where possible. May you find ways to sit at ease with the rest. Take a moment to notice your body, the shape it's making, the support of what you're resting against or upon, the texture and touch of your clothing, maybe air against your skin. Noticing something you can hear. And with a few blinks, open your eyes and look around your environment. See where you are. Orientate, arrive back in the room. Noticing as objectively as you can some parts of the space you're inhabiting. And then offer your body a yawn stretch. And just think about taking a moment to close some of the windows and doors that you've opened in this house of you. You have blown them wide open You may be feeling vulnerable, maybe particularly after that touch meditation or just the slowness and yumminess of the practice. And it's okay to want to close those doors a little. Just leave maybe one window open as you get on with the rest of your day, your week, so that while we maintain this protective layer, which is absolutely fine, we still are aware of the possibility of staying open to what might waft in and transform a moment. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you want at any point to reach out for more personal care, please do. Wishing you well. Namaste. And thank you for joining.